You know that feeling when something breaks, and instead of fixing it, you just stare at it. Like the crack is telling you something you're not ready to hear. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is staring at a broken thing, wondering if the life they built around it was ever really theirs to begin with. In 2082, on a floating neighborhood in the Mekong Delta, a man named Callum Rourke keeps bees. By this point in history, 3 engines had reshaped civilization. Artificial intelligence that could outthink any human, robots that could outbuild any crew, and clean fusion energy that made power virtually free. Human labor became largely unnecessary. Everyone on the Delta lives comfortably for free. Food, housing, healthcare, all guaranteed like tap water. Nobody pays for anything. Because when producing things costs nearly nothing, charging for basics became as absurd as charging for air. Most people here retired around 24, after a few years of civic service, learning how civilization's plumbing actually works.
Callum's basics are covered. That's the foundation, the 90% of life that just works.
The remaining 10%? That's where people push themselves because they want to, not because they have to. It's called the ascent, and Callum chose bees. But here's what Callum can't shake. Before the bees, before the Delta, he was a combat engineer. 12 years building forward operating bases in places that don't exist on civilian maps. And the algorithm that matched him to this life afterward? It knew him. It knew the tremor in his hands would steady around insects. It knew the hum of a hive would quiet the noise in his head. And that's the thing that terrifies him. Not that the algorithm was wrong, that it was right. That a system he never asked to understand him mapped the inside of his skull more accurately than he ever could. The cracked panel on his roof, he could fix it in 10 minutes. He hasn't. Because staring at something broken feels honest in a way the rest of his life doesn't. Then, the power goes out. Not a flicker, a full blackout across the neighborhood grid. The fusion relay that feeds the Delta goes silent. The backup AI reroutes in seconds, but one node stays dark. The community pavilion, mid-meeting. And the system's recommendation? Skip it. Low priority. Reroute power to the medical bay and the food storage.
But Callum knows something the algorithm doesn't.
The woman in that pavilion, Lynn, she organized this meeting to ask the neighborhood to forgive her son, who'd been caught falsifying his contribution log on the trust ledger. The boy is 17. He panicked. And Lynn has spent 3 weeks gathering the courage to stand in front of her neighbors and say, "My child made a mistake. Please let him try again." Callum uses his old civic authority, the override power every service graduate carries, to reroute power back to the pavilion. The algorithm knew to skip it. Callum knew not to. Because forgiveness doesn't wait for optimal conditions. It barely survives at all. Lynn speaks. The room is quiet. And something shifts in Callum, watching a woman ask for grace she isn't sure she'll receive. The algorithm mapped his trauma onto bees and got it right. But it couldn't have mapped this. The moment he realizes that being known by a machine isn't the same as being understood by a person. Understanding requires someone choosing to stay in the room. Does forgiveness require understanding? Maybe not. Maybe it just requires presence, showing up in the same room as someone's worst moment, and choosing not to leave. The algorithm gave Callum his bees, but it was Lynn who gave him the thing he actually needed. Proof that humans still do for each other what no system ever could. The next morning, Callum fixes the panel. Not because the algorithm told him to, because Lynn's son came by at dawn to help, hands shaking, saying nothing, just holding the frame steady while Callum worked. Sometimes that's what forgiveness looks like. Not a word. Just 2 people fixing something broken, together. That's a world where the machines handle the math, and humans handle the moments the math can't reach. A world worth building. That's Unscarcity. If Callum's story left you with questions, the AI at unscarcity.ai has read the whole book and loves a good argument. Start there.